Today I have a really exciting guest, Glenn Hefferan, who's the USHL Commissioner and President. So this is a really exciting one. Thank you guys for tuning in. So can you tell me a little bit about how you started and if you were 14, 15 years old and you gave yourself advice, do you think that you would be in this position today?
Wow, that's a unique question. My journey started when I was 12 and a half. I literally tripped into another kid skating at a public skate, and his name is Kevin Russell. He's a dear friend to this very day. And Kevin bounced up very quickly and said, "Oh, it's those figure skates you're wearing." I'm like, "These are the skates that run to the Christmas tree." Like, I don't know what to tell you. He says, "No, you got to go out and get hockey skates." And I did. I went and got hockey skates, and he saw me at the next public skate. And he was like, "Look, you're skating better already. Let's start you playing hockey." And I was like, "I don't have any equipment. I don't know anything about it. Like, I don't know what to tell you." And he was like, you know, just stay with it and come to my house and I'll give you some of my old gear. And turns out his family knew my family really well. And so there was kind of history there. And I started playing. And as I said, I was terrible at it. Got a little better when I started officiating when I was 15. You start skating more. Skating was the name of the game. And so if there was advice that I could have given the Glenn Heffron from when I was much younger, I would have said start skating when you were six. I would definitely do that. But everything for me administratively in hockey has almost been um, almost happenstance. I was working on Wall Street, when I finished school, and as far as I was concerned, I was going to be a lifer on Wall Street, and my life took a very different trajectory. And got married young, and had a daughter right away, and and both my kids played, so that was kind of cool, kept me involved. But I started running leagues on the East Coast. I think probably in '92. I was running a junior team. Like I owned a team called the New Jersey Junior Devils, and from that it led to me being president of the league, which I had no intentions on. And it was a very political boardroom kind of thing. They ran me to split the vote, and I ended up winning. And so everything like that had been rather happenstance. And as a result of that, it put me on the USA Hockey's junior council because we had a junior division called the Met League, one of the oldest junior leagues in the country at the time. It was started by Emil Francis of the New York Rangers back in 1966. And so great history. Guys like Brian and Joey Mullen played in the league, and Mike Richter, and some really incredible Nick Fatiu. Actually was one of the first players, I think, notable players that played in the league, Max Middendorf. So that put me on a different trajectory with USA Hockey. And Dave Tyler, who was then commissioner of the United States Hockey League, had me part of this Super League committee, which was the precursor to creating Tier 1 junior hockey in the United States. And my first game was in Waterloo, Iowa, in the old McElroy building. And I was like, wow, they had 5,500 people. I'm like, I have got to get our best players out here. Like, this was wild. Then to Des Moines, and then to Omaha, which had 6,200 people. I don't know, 100 and something, 160 some odd straight sellouts in a row. Like, it was incredible. So that kind of began my passion of working with the USHL. So I've always had a good relationship with all of their commissioners along the way. Gino Gasparini, I consider a mentor, and he was great to me. He and I had a lot of fun on the junior council together, and I was kind of like Gino's majority whip. I'd get all the junior B votes to, line up for anything the USHL needed. So I have a long history that way, and we put together the USHL Atlantic Challenge. So as I said, I've always had a relatively close relationship, and always a supportive one. Where there were other programs on the East, we're telling kids, "Oh, you don't want to play in the USHL." And I'm thinking, you have no idea what you're talking about because you don't know what you're missing. Like, the hockey here is incredible. And so for me to be in this position, to be its commissioner now, it's just been a remarkable journey. And the board knows how I feel about the league. And this is where I hope my hockey career finishes. I truly do. I enjoy every bit of it. It's a challenge. We have some really tough people in our room, but we have great owners and great coaches. I was actually reflecting on this over the weekend, and I was thinking about all the success. I mentioned on a recent interview in the NHL Network 79 players were in the Frozen Four this past year that were USHL alum. 79. That's a remarkable number considering we were supplying half of college hockey, in our draft numbers. I think we're at 237 over the last six drafts, far more than any other league. And I think that it's not just the numbers though, right? Data is fine. That only tells part of the story. We have great coaches. We have beautiful facilities. We have awesome GMs that, just work their tails off. And so I think all of those things are just a great positive reflection on the league and why we've been able to achieve so much without being part of a collective bargaining agreement, without having decades of NHL funding. Like we built this really on our own. And so I think now we do have a great partnership with the NHL and with USA Hockey, and that will continue to grow. I think you saw we had the Declaration of Excellence launch, which we're really proud of that. And we're going to amplify that message and hopefully be delivering that something in a more formal address to the NHL general managers.
I think it's interesting because you said that you grew up and were doing Wall Street, and I was a finance major. That was actually my dream, but I was doing private investing, and I didn't really like it. I didn't like how competitive it was. Everybody was just trying to get the next dollar and stuff, so I ended up quitting. And well, I still have the finance degree, but I didn't want to do that path. I feel like this path in hockey finds you, especially in sports or whatever you're supposed to do. It does find you if you work hard enough. So do you think because you didn't think about it, that's why there was no resistance towards what you did and it was just all flow basically? Because it does seem like that.
Yeah, I do. Well, I think, like chance prepares you, right? Life prepares you for these moments. And there was a lot of prayer on my part, of wanting to make sure that this was a good fit for me, good fit for the league, a good fit for my family. But I'm definitely passionate about it. I don't, I say this not with any ounce of grudge, but I work every day. And I love working every day. It gets me going. My days, I wake up in the morning, the very first thing I'm thinking about is, oh, I got to get this done. And what meetings do I have today? And I enjoy that. I thrive off of being able to work every day in something that you love doing. And you see lives change right before your very eyes. I mean, the Aiden Park draft, if there was ever a great moment. Happy Gilmore was one for sure, for James Hagan's, but certainly for Aiden Park to be able to throw his sweater on over his hoodie and shorts, like that's just a
Yeah.
cool thing. And hopefully that changes the trajectory of where he's at. And he had a great year with the USHL in Green Bay last year. So, you look at those moments and you think, wow, you get to be part of that. I enjoy all of the players when I get to call them at the end of the year for their year-end awards. Just a quick personal call to say congratulations. Somebody asked me what's been your favorite moment so far, but a player when Fargo won it 2 years ago, um, a player came off the ice, so I guess it was a year ago, and they had cut the net off, and they cut a piece, and when the player came and handed it to me, he goes, I know this is your first Clark Cup. You deserve a piece of this net too. And I wish I could remember which player it was, but I was blown away by that. I was like, wow, the fact that you're in the middle of celebrating one of the best moments in your hockey career to date, and you're thinking about my first Clark Cup, like selfless player. So like those are the things I think you live for. Because again, like nobody, it's very rare you get calls from within that are, like, wow, this is great. It's usually, hey, you got to fix this or put this fire out, and that's fine. It's what you sign up for. So, yeah, so it's all been, yeah, I tend to agree with your thought process that it's, there are some things that do happen for the happenstance reason. And I think that's been a large part of my, but also a willingness to listen to people that came before you. As I said, Dave Tyler, Dave Ogren, who's former executive director of USA Hockey, really good friend and mentor, Walter Bush, Ron DiGregorio, all people that I've had some serious clashes with over the years, but they always remained consistent in wanting to help guide and provide advice. And you can't ask for anything more.
So my next question actually was, what was your proudest moment ever on, like in hockey or your journey on this path? But now, like, what was your like the game that you watched that you felt like, wow, I made it? Or what was your like I made it moment as commissioner and president?
I really tend to, I can't deny I was so proud to be named the commissioner of the league. It was an incredibly proud moment for me. My son went out, my son and I play cribbage every once in a while, and he went out and had a custom cribbage board made that's at a rink and has the USHL logo in the middle. It was like it's a little thing, but it was a really proud moment. Obviously the moment when that player gave me the piece of the net, that was a really proud moment. To hear from people outside the sphere that, hey, the USHL is doing some really good things, right now. And that, you're always grateful to hear that. So those are really cool moments. The fact that my wife stays with me through all of this, all of the travel, and she's fully supportive. That's a great moment. I would say that professionally speaking, so I had some time in the media. I was a stringer way back in the night from like 88 to 96 for UPI and just pulling quotes and was in the Stanley Cup locker room when the Devils won. And that was and Jimmy Dowd actually handed me the Stanley Cup in the locker room to pass to Billy Guerin. So like that's a pretty cool moment. You remember that? I worked in the 2002 Olympics for NBC. I was going out there just to hang with my buddy who was the executive producer for hockey and thought I was going to be his gopher, right? Hey, just your liaison between you and US, all the USA hockey people. And the next thing I know, I'm like the font coordinator for all of the games at the East Center, which is all of the graphics, all the lower thirds you're calling during the game. And I was like, I've never done this before. He goes, you're going to learn this afternoon. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, don't worry about it. Everybody's learning. It's a brand new Avid system. Nobody knows what they're doing. I was like, okay. So there have been some of those kinds of moments that you just never forget and being part of. And to be part of this, to be part of this change in the ecosystem in North America, I think it's exciting to be part of that.
Yeah.
There's going to be some big changes and big decisions that have to get made, and hopefully everyone that's involved recognizes that there is no us and them. It's we. We want to grow the sport. We want to see the sport grow together. And I think those are really valuable opportunities for us to recognize.
Yeah, there's like a real sense of brotherhood, community, and pride in the USHL. Like, how do you keep that culture strong while continuing to grow the league and not make it as competitive? Like, we're trying to take these players, like, you should come here for success.
Well, I think part of it is everyone that's on this side of the game has to recognize that you're here longer than any one player. So winning a recruiting battle or losing a recruiting battle is not a single defining moment for you as a coach or as a GM. And it's taking into consideration the bigger picture of what you're doing. Because for every one you may have lost any recruiting battle, there's 10 more players standing behind you that can't wait for the opportunity. And some of them you have selected. And so that should always be your focus. Don't lose sleep over I spent a good deal of time prior I had kind of stepped away from hockey as a profession from about 2012 until, I don't know, until about COVID. When COVID hit, I kind of jumped back in from a professional standpoint. But in any event, um, in my time in sales, like I never looked at the ones that I didn't get. Like I always looked at, okay, like that's something I can improve upon to make sure I get the next sale. And so like I think that's an important lesson for all of our coaches and GMs, and whether it's here or any other league. Don't lose sight over the one you lost. Stay focused on the ones you got, because the one thing I know that we do exceptionally well, we develop players. We take good players and we make them exceptional players.
Mhm.
And that's not because, of the thousands of people that attend our games, or because we sold every dasher board or every backlit sign is sold. It's not because of those reasons. It's because of the people that are on the ice with our players, the fact that we practice 4 days a week, the 2-to-1 game to practice ratio. Like these things matter in the development of an elite athlete, whether you're talking about hockey, soccer, football, basketball, practice, the old joke about how do I get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. And that's applicable in anything, in any athletic endeavor. And so the more time you get to practice, the better athlete you're going to be. And so I think those are the things that are um, I think those are things that have been really fundamental to our culture as a league.
So from your break from 2012 to 2020, like what got you back in to hockey?
Well, it was a short break. I did come back. Somebody asked me to come back and run a junior team. I had jumped into real estate, kind of both feet in 2012. And um, at the end of that year, I had retired after 20 years from the AYHL and Met League. And at the end of that year, somebody asked me to come and be part of running a junior team. And we did. We put a really great team together. I think it was kind of storybook, sad storybook. We were an overtime goal away from going to nationals with a first year team, and that was all culture. It was I never saw a group of players like this before, and they all stay in touch. We all are part of a text thread that we all stay in touch with every few months. Somebody will chime in, and so I think that kind of brought me back in a little bit. But then I just kind of had some like very cursory roles in consulting various groups. And 2015, they asked me to run for affiliate president. Um, and I did it only because I didn't think I was going to win, but I could make a statement on some things. And turns out I think I won by one vote out of like 60 something votes. I won by one vote. And that put me back on the board at USA Hockey because I had served for 9 years, and that put me back on the board in 2015. But when COVID hit, our area was very hard hit in terms of closures, and it became like my daily mission to get our rinks back open and operating. And if you look at all of the states that were really in tight lockdown, that weren't like New York State wasn't allowed to play a game legally until February of 2021. We were playing games by September. And so I think that really required me to be full time. So they asked me to kind of take on a consulting role and managing. We were managing lobbyists and whatnot, which, it's sad that that's what it took to get our rinks open, but that's what it took. And so we did that and kind of remained active that way. And as I said, in 23, when I was asked to take over at the USHL, I kind of pushed a lot of that stuff aside, and somebody else, I'm still president of that affiliate, but it's a volunteer role and other people are really picking up the day-to-day work, which is great. Sometimes that's the way those things should go.
Outside of the boardroom and the rink and all of that, like what is your passions and what do you do to stay recharged and inspired?
Uh, I pray a lot, that's for sure. I play piano. I play piano pretty much every day. Just it's a way to clear my head. You know, just doing stuff with the wife, when time permits. But I enjoy being at the rink. Like I love, like I'll go to our player development camps and I just these are just our combines. I just enjoy being part of that and watching players, and that is my passion. Hockey's been my passion, and especially junior hockey has been my passion forever. My very first team was a junior team, as mentioned earlier, the Junior Devils. So, like started the Bismarck Bobcats. Like as I said, my whole life I've been weaving in and out of junior hockey. So it's, the passion will always be there.
What was your first jersey growing up?
Islander jersey.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So a neighbor of my dad's found out that I was a hockey player and said, "Oh, well, I'm like a senior vice president of the Nets and the Islanders. I'll take you and my sons to an Islander game." And he brought me down to the arena when they were playing at the Nassau Coliseum and brought me down to the locker room. And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, and that became my team. So the
Yeah.
Islanders became my team, and they gave me a jersey. It was a professional jersey, and I was like, "Oh man." So I instantly became an Islander fan. And then around, I guess the Devils came in 82, and I was slow to warm up to them. I warmed up to them though by like 86. When you have a team named after them, the Junior Devils, you kind of have to start becoming a fan of the team.
Yeah.
And I knew their general manager then, Max McNabb, who was a family friend. And so I started to really warm up to the Devils and was a full-fledged Devil fan the year they made playoffs for the first time.
That's awesome. So congratulations on Matthew Schaefer if you're still an Islanders fan. But other than that, like Have you ever been starstruck? And like, what was the biggest moment when, you were having an event in the USHL and there was just like unbelievable people and you're like, wow, this is this.
I'm not one for that. You do have some moments from time to time. You meet with Deputy Commissioner Daly and Commissioner Bettman, and that's kind of a surreal moment. Like you're thinking, wow, here's this kid from Jersey City who is not a great hockey player, and he's sitting with the most influential people in all of hockey. And so hoping to help shape new policy and direction and support. And so that's probably the most surreal moment. But, Deputy Commissioner Daly's known me for my time prior to the USHL working on USA Hockey's board. And he's well aware of my feistiness and that I'll push back but I say this all sincerity, I think we're really fortunate to have Bill serving on USA Hockey's board and the access that he gives and his commitment to development is remarkable. He understands, I think he's got a really incredible understanding of the landscape of hockey for all, not just North America, but across the pond as well. And he's got great vision. And so, as does Gary, of course. But it's my interaction is more with Deputy Commissioner Daly, and as I said, he's a genuinely regular person, just really humble guy. So that was great.
What's one thing your colleagues and your peers know about you that fans and media might not know?
You're going to talk about my staff. It's sometimes I'm really slow to respond to emails, which can get under their skin. I'd like to have a good time. I want everybody, like, we want a good culture within our group. And I can say that about our staff. It's a remarkable culture. They all care about each other's work, they all care about each other's success. And that's important. Like, there's real camaraderie there. And they all back each other and they back me, and even though sometimes they may not agree, like, not you're not always going to agree with your boss, but
Yep.
it's a wonderful collegial environment, and beyond that it's warm, and like that's a really cool thing. So fans probably don't see that side. I will say what I am surprised in, although I'm probably easy to recognize, when I go to a rink or one of our arenas rather, I'm always dressed in a suit. I don't know any other way. It would be I would be caught dead at a USHL game in casual clothes. I just don't do that. And it's just out of respect for the league and the position, and fans recognize that you must be somebody because you're in a suit. No one
Yep.
else is here in a suit. And they'll stop to talk to me. And that I find really cool. And I learn a lot from them. So our fans are really, really, they love their teams. They are so passionate about their teams. They're passionate about their players. And they don't have any qualms saying, hey, listen, that referee in that game we had 3 weeks ago, like they love giving it to you, but they're always respectful. I don't get the Gary Bettman treatment. I don't get booed when I have to go and deliver.
Yeah.
They're really respectful, which I appreciate, but I'm ready for it if the minute they're not. But again, it's a very different environment, and so the fans sometimes surprise me, and some of and they're good questions, like they're really thoughtful. And have you ever thought of this? And it's pretty cool.
So if you're talking to a 14 or 15-year-old dreaming of playing in the NHL, what would you tell them about choosing the USHL path?
If you understand that development into a National Hockey League player is hard and it's hard work and are prepared to practice a lot, then this is the right path for you. And here's the proof. Here's the results. Here's what we can actually demonstrate what happens with our players. We have no desire to hold you back if college is calling. And been using Yegeroff as an example, and I don't think there's any denying BU would not have been in the Frozen Four had it not been for Yegeroff, goaltender that they pulled from Omaha midseason. And I know some people that's a foreign experience for some of our friends north of the border. Like that's just doesn't has never happened to them before, but it will. And we embrace that. That's part of what we do. And to see that young man who was a New Jersey Devils draft pick, by the way, to see him have that impact instantaneously. I mean, look at their record. He made all it as a freshman goaltender. So I think to a young player, like it's making sure they, do their own research, find the programs that will be looking for you for your fit as a player by position. And I don't think players understand that. Like, look for where the work is. I did some advising over the years, and just as a favor to help people I knew out, and they wanted to understand what their path should be. And it is about working hard. It's about being a dedicated athlete. There are so few that make it simply because they're excessively talented.
Hmm.
There's some, but it's not the norm. We all talk about those kinds of players, but the reality is most players have to work really hard at this, and anything worth doing is going to take hard work. So, message to 14, 15-year-olds is be a real student of the game, not just in terms of the X's and O's and how to develop as an athlete. There was something I've talked about in the past about off-ice training. We brought all of our strength and conditioning coaches to Plymouth last year in September to go over best practices. And the guys at GVN do an unbelievable job. They train the national team program, and we had the Detroit Red Wings in, and Michigan was there. And one of the key presenters goes through his list of bona fides of his degree, his master's, his certification in this and this and this. And he says, what I'm about to show you now, I didn't know 2 years ago. And that just tells you how fast, development, progress in athlete development changes as we learn more and what the body can and can't do, and how do you eliminate soft tissue injuries and things like that. And so it was amazing presentation to me, but I think that players need to like really be students in every aspect of this. They don't sleep well.
Hmm.
These young kids today, they're in the death scroll all night, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, going through all of that. They live in that phone when they can be putting more time into stick handling and shooting, in their parents' basement. And like that's what they should be doing. And if you really want to develop, and spending less time there, but learning about nutrition and sleep habits and mental wellness, that's been a growing issue for this upcoming generation where there is so much pressure to perform. One of the things that I do when I've met with families and met with players, I put on a piece of paper two words in big bold letters: love and fun. And I fold it up and I put it out on the table, and I ask the player, why do you play? And their answer almost 99% of the times are, because I love it. Well, why do you love it? Because it's fun. And you open up the paper and they think you did a cool parlor trick, but the reality is that's what it is, about love and fun. And so keep it that in that place for them. And so I think that's the message for kids. It's about your love and fun of the game, not your parents, not your advisor, not your coach. It's about your love and fun. And that's what transformational thinking is about. Like, coaches need to think transformationally. The more you put your players ahead of your own wants and needs, the more success you will have. And so I tell players, gravitate to that kind of coach. Find that coach who's more interested in you than himself or herself.
That was great. So, from a commissioner seat, what excites you about where the USHL is headed in the next few seasons?
I would say growth, number one, is we
Mhm.
we have a lot of expansion potential. I'm really excited about that. I think most of our teams, coaches, general managers, and owners are over okay, the landscape has changed. We still have to develop players. We still have to get after the next, group of talented kids. And so I'm excited that I think we're all seeing that there's more opportunity here than not. So that's exciting for me. I would also say that I think the NHL's engagement in what's happening and trying to be neutral but be guiding at the same time. It's a delicate tightrope for them, but I think they're doing it masterfully, and um, I think that's exciting. It's we're our sport in the United States is continuing to grow. It's a positive direction on player growth, and I think it's not linear. There's some parts of the country that are having some struggles, and I think that might be more business related than hockey related, in terms of how rinks and facilities construct their programs. They may see more wisdom in having less players in their building more frequently than having more players less frequently. But in other parts of the country, Minnesota's numbers continue to grow disproportionately than most of the country. Florida's growing. And when you have back to back, I mean, how many Stanley Cups have we given out in the state of Florida the last few years, right? That helps growth. That part of it, the growth of the growth potential of the sport. I mean, to hear that the NHL is open-minded to more expansion and bringing NHL to other cities. I think that bodes well for the sport. Our growth, the NHL growth, USA Hockey's growth, I think is really those are leading exciting factors for me. And that just the more players there are, the more opportunity is for the USHL. So,
What advice would you give to somebody that wants to be a commissioner in a hockey league?
have a lot of patience. Um, Go to the Dale Carnegie class on how to win friends and influence people.
Great
That helps.
book.
It's a great book. And side note, it's a class that my father-in-law made me take as a condition of marrying his daughter. That's
Wow.
true. And
My
and I
mom
did.
took that class.
It's a great
Just
class.
yeah.
My father-in-law had a master's degree from the Wharton School of Business, and he said he valued his Dale Carnegie class more than his Wharton's degree. And I think when somebody says that, that's pretty compelling. So I was really pleased to take that class. So that was definitely I was set, hard to believe I was kind of an introverted person. And this would have never happened, I would have never done an interview. Like that just was not my thing. And then doing that class actually made a difference and um, learn to de-escalate, I think is always key because you're often dealing with conflict and conflict resolution. And believe me, as I said, I had some mentors along the way, like Dave Ogren in particular, who had to have the patience of the saint dealing with me sometimes because I could be a handful. But over time you learn that, how to make diplomacy work and I think I look back at Walter Bush, the former, how many four presidents ago. Walter's the reason why women's hockey is an Olympic sport. He led that charge internationally. And Walter, you walk away in a conflict, Walter settled, and one or two things are going to happen. Either both sides are going to feel really good or both sides are going to feel bad a little bit. And that's that fine art of being able to do that is what I think makes good commissioners and being able to, make a decisive decision on something. I think that's being decisive and being willing to hear all sides of an issue. But it's different. Brian Burke said this a long time ago when he was, I think he was in Bill Daly's role. He was the number two, I think, at the NHL. And he said, you can't win a Stanley Cup sitting in the NHL office. And that's why I think he went to Hartford, if I'm not mistaken. And I always remembered that comment. So it is different when you're in the league office versus running a team. And running a team sets a culture in that team environment. But the league office, whether it's the National Hockey League or our league, you're responding to the cultures of all of your member teams. And they all operate and function a little bit differently and have different priorities on some things too. And so it's managing all of that and learning to read that room and so I think that's if that's the kind of mindset you have, if you're a more competitive beast, then probably being at the team level is a better. And I'm competitive in a different way. Running a team was less about wins and losses for me and more about culture and advancement and development. And that's a great mindset, but winning is huge for a lot of people. And you belong in a certain environment if that's your top line priority. And that doesn't mean you compromise other things. It's just how you're wired. So I'm wired, I'm a league guy. I've always been a league guy. I've run some teams, but I if you gave me a choice, running your favorite team or running the league, I'm gonna take the league probably 9 out of 10 times.
Wow. First of all, How to Make Friends and Influence People. That book actually changed my life because I've read it multiple times, and every single time I like need a just a reset, I actually read that book. My buddy's dad also has like notes, so he would take notes of the book and then printed it on the back. So you would like fold it up and it was like 3 pages of notes. That's an incredible book. Like, what is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten to help your like to get you to your path and kind of was like your awakening moment in what you can do?
I don't know if there's like I think my life has been a building block one step at a
Yeah.
time. Patience and kindness are probably the two most important. I was having an email exchange with Dave Ogan at the time, and I was being very critical of someone on his staff, and deeply critical. And he wrote me an email saying, "Hey, do me a favor, ease up on so and so." And I said, well, okay, but only because you're asking. But tell me why. And he says, because you're not being nice. And I thought about it for a while, and he's right. Like you can challenge people and discipline people and while still being nice. You can always be polite and sincere and kind to people. You don't have to be abrasive or abusive. And that sometimes in competitive sports, at least, I mean, you see it just, officials and coaches, that adversarial. You can be critical without being hateful or using harsh language or being unkind. There's never a reason to be unkind. There's never a good reason, not to players, not to the people around you. And sometimes we all need that reminder, but that's probably the single best advice, that kindness matters, and treating people respectfully and with intellectual honesty. Like that probably, kindness and the intellectual honesty piece are probably the two. And intellectual honesty is about not, like, I have some people that I have to deal with that can be really challenging, but you know what? I know where they're coming from. It's honest, it's straightforward. There's nothing beyond. I may not agree with them, but you know what they're saying and you know why they're saying it. There's nothing behind it other than what they believe. And that's a really good way to be. And so when you have people like that, I have board members that are like that, and they're wonderful. Like, they're really smart people, and sometimes we don't agree, and that's okay. That's how you perfect your league or your business or whatever it is. And so kindness and intellectual honesty, I think, are probably the two most important things for me. That were Dale Carnegie was part of that too. By the way, they have a new version of that book. It's the Win Friends and Influence People for the Digital Age. So it's more meant for
Oh,
this
wow.
current, yeah,
Okay.
this more current. I actually gave it as a gift to somebody, and I hope they're reading it.
That's awesome. I will definitely have to check that out. I'll ask real quick for my birthday gift for my family because it's my birthday on Thursday. I'll be like, hey, no, but for the last question, because you've been so generous with your time and this has been an awesome conversation. Learned a lot. Is there one question that you've ever wanted to be asked on an interview or a podcast or show like this that you haven't been asked?
That's a really good question. I'm sure there is, and I could probably expound on that, but then that wouldn't be any fun if I told you, because I want somebody to actually ask the question and have my reaction be completely right off the cuff. And that's like, I'm so much better that way. Like, I have a really amazing staff, and when I have to do interviews, they'll prepare some notes for me and just stuff that we've been recently talking about. And um they'll send me an email, and like they said, this is the things you should be prepared for, and it's always very thorough. But when I have to do like a video message and then it's scripted, I'm terrible. Like, I just give me the highlights and I'll ad lib it. And so, um, for me, there is certainly one question that I would love for somebody to ask, and I'll just wait for it to happen organically. I'm not going to share it.
That's awesome.
It-
I'm looking at my question list like, oh, what could it be? But that's awesome. I love the foreshadowing. But thank you so much for coming on.